Okay, all right. Slide two. There we go. Okay. Hello, folks. Welcome to another session with me here. We are continuing our JavaScript for beginners. This is going to be, well, again, that's about me. There you go. That's me. I'm Jesma BR. I have all these certificates and other stuff, personal website, everything is there on the board. Now, today we are in JavaScript Fundamentals, Angular Hello World 5. So, now, in the last session, I spoke about how we have covered the very core essentials of Angular. And then I mentioned that now by itself, building an Angular web app is not going to be enough. We have to have what is called as a back-end server or web API. That is what we really need to make an interactive experience. So we are now, and we are continuing the foundations here, the basics again, but the difference is now we are also trying to add the second half. When we talk about any kind of website, we always talk about a full stack application. So that is, I'm starting that journey today, right? And as always, today again we are starting the backend server with the basics. So normally I try to pack a lot of things, but today I'll go a little slow on purpose so that that foundational things is more clear, and of course we'll ramp up in the future sessions. But first, as always, I have the one sheet document. So let me quickly go ahead and send that in the chat. So I usually send the document in the beginning of the session and also at the end of the session. So let me just do that 1 second, please. Okay, here we go. Yes, September 23rd. Okay. All right, folks, I've sent the PDF in the chat. I've sent that to everyone. And okay, now remember, folks, as always, the document does not remain because the chat disappears after the Zoom session is over. So you should have received the document now. As usual, the document contains keynotes about each session with supporting links and everything. So even if you're joining on a mobile device or something, please go ahead and download the document. I'll send it again at the end of the session, but it is better if you take it right now. And I want to go ahead and open the document as well. So let's go ahead here. And this is the document I just sent you now. So there you go. We are now in Hello World 5, the 16th session, where we are trying to cover the basics of Angular and so on. And what is important is the links that I provide. Now today, the more important thing is, of course, there's the Hello World AIU. That is the starting point for your Angular journey. We explored that in the previous sessions. But today, I have a different link for you, and that is this one. Angular for students, as always, that is for these students here. But today specifically, I'm talking about the one that says Angular Nest JSHW. So again, like I said, I want to slow down here today because I'm introducing backend server to you, and I am going to go slow today on purpose. Right? This is what we are going to discuss today. So before we go deep into it, a common feedback I get, as I mentioned, we have the GitHub community and stuff like that. Like if you scroll up here on the first page, there is a discussions forum, and there are many students from this class, who sometimes pop in. You can see they ask questions and I reply and everything. A common question I get is, a lot of you find it difficult to get the code and run it on your computer. So that is what I'm going to start with today. So let's do that. So that is what we are going to do. So from the PDF, today's session, which is session number 16, and there, you have the second link, which is Angular Next HW. That's what we are talking about. It's Nest, N-E-S-T, not Next. That is another thing, but we are using Nest, N-E-S-T. Right? So how do we run the project? How do you get it? That's a very common question I get in the community forum. So let's do that. So as always, go to that link, and then here, please go to the main Angular for students. location. So this is what you should be looking at, right? And then here there are two options, as always. Now, if you have taken my advice and you learned how to use Git, on the very earlier sessions that we did, like I would say many months, maybe years ago, then you should already know Git. If you're already comfortable with Git, if you're not comfortable with Git, again, go back to my PDF, and here I have put link for for my YouTube channel, right? And I have made videos on how to use GitHub. So please give it a try, because GitHub is an essential skill. I use it every day in all my sessions also, and obviously I want you to become comfortable with it, right? So if you are taking my advice and are good with Git, then what you should do is click on this green button here, and you'll see there's a box called HTTPS. So you're going to click on this copy thing. You're going to get a pop-up that says copied, and then you want to clone it. So again, I'm showing you option number one. There are two options. First option is for people who are already familiar with Git, which is their preferred way of doing things, or maybe after watching this video, you will go and become familiar with Git, right? So that is option number one. So now normally I recommend that you put all your coding things in the videos folder or the music folder. Why? Because in Windows computers, you have this thing called OneDrive, which syncs all your files to the cloud. Now, remember, coding files, there are thousands of them when you're working on a project. You don't want them syncing to the cloud. So that is why I tell my students, don't keep your code in documents or desktop. Don't do that. Please keep your code either in videos or music. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go to my videos folder, right? Okay, I already have so many repositories here. So what I'll do is I'll just create a new folder, because I'm doing AIU things, right? So I'm gonna create a folder called AIU. Now today the date is September 26th, yeah? Okay, so I also recommend you do the same thing, because you may have other folders. You don't wanna get them confused with your work folders. So I'm gonna create a folder called AIU September 26th. I'm going to go inside, and I want to go ahead and open the terminal. Okay, I have the terminal now. Next thing is I'm going to try the commands git, right, and then clone, git space clone. And I'm going to right click, and immediately that link I copied from the GitHub website will be pasted. And then you just have to press enter, and then it'll start cloning into your computer. And now I have the project in my PC. And here today's focus, again, going back to that PDF I shared with all of you. Hold on, yeah, there it is. And it mentions very clearly that I'm talking about a folder called Angular Nest. Where is that? Yeah, Angular Nest JSHW. So that's what we are going for. So again, come back to the folder, and here it is, Angular Nest JSHW. So this is going to be option number one on how, what is the best way for you to get my code, right? Now, this only works if you already took my advice and installed Git and know how to use Git and so on. Now, what if you don't have Git yet, or you're not planning to use Git yet, but still you want to participate in the coding from this session? So then the next second option, not recommended, but you may not have a choice until you learn GitHub and so on. So go back to the same link as before and click on the same green link here. And instead of the HTTPS copy button, you are going to try and go to the option slightly below, which says download zip. Okay, so second option, not recommended, but until you have Git, you learn the knowledge of Git and how to use Git, you start using it, you will go ahead and try to use the download zip option, which is what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to click on the download zip option. It'll take a few seconds. We'll wait for it. Okay, hold on. Oh. Okay, it says it's downloaded. And now what I want to do is I'll go here. Hold on. I'm going to go to the downloads folder. Okay, and I have my downloads folder here, and you can see I have the downloaded zip here. Now, once again, what I want to do is I don't want to keep things in my downloads folder because that folder is used all the time. So if I unzip it right there, it might get mixed up with other files. So we don't want to do that. So what I'll do is I'll copy this and I'll go to my videos again. Now, I already have a folder called AIU September 26, which has my project already. So what I'll do is I'll create another folder. So I'm gonna say new, hold on, the Zoom bar is blocking me. So I'm going to say new folder. And once again, now remember, this is the second option if you don't have Git already configured. So I'm going to say AIU and I want to say SEPTM September 26th, 2025. I already have a folder like that created for the first way of getting the code. So I'm just going to add a B here so that I can still create this folder. I'll go inside and then I'm going to paste the zip that I downloaded. Okay, and here I'll simply go ahead and right click and then I'll extract the entire folder here. So once again, I have my Angular for Students folder, and this contains the project that I am going to show you today. So again, I'm just showing this step because a lot of times I get questions on the community where I notice that you're either finding it difficult to get my code in the first place, or even after getting the code, you're not sure which folder has the steps. So we have this much now. So either you do the second option, which is downloading the code as a zip here, or you do the standard recommended step of git cloning. Either way, you'll end up in the same folder kind of deal. Okay, so what is the project we are looking at? So today, and in future sessions as well, for at least a couple of sessions, we will be looking at Angular Nest J Nest.js HW. This is the folder. Now here again, you have two folders. And why are there two folders now? So let's go back to my PowerPoint here. Now, as I mentioned here, so let's go, right? So we are going to start building both the back end and the front end together. So that is what I want to explain now before I jump into the code and then run the demo and so on. So let's get my Paint software here and try to understand what is this back end and front end I keep talking about. Now, I touched upon this in the previous session a little bit, but today I have the actual code. So let's quickly do a refresher. So now here, what I have is any kind of, let's call software, or in our case, the application. So we are trying to build a web app. So we'll just use the word app to keep it simple. Now, in every app, there is at least, you have on one end, you have the, what is called as the front end, right? I'm drawing this with my, mouse on, the touchpad on the laptop. So please, it's going to be a not as, clear as I would be drawing with a pen or something. So please bear with me, right? So on one end, I have, here we go. So on one end, I have the, okay, there we go. On every app, in a bare minimum, we'll have two things. You will have the front end, right? And then you have the back end as well. An example that I use every time, even in these sessions and when I'm teaching elsewhere as well, is a software or an app is like a restaurant. You have your kitchen, in every restaurant, you would have the kitchen area where, the food is prepared and everything. You have the chefs working hard. It's usually very hot, right? I travel a lot sometimes, I become friendly with restaurants, so sometimes they'll give me permission to see the kitchen and stuff like that. Or if you go to the mall and everything, a lot of these shops like Domino's or something, you can actually see the kitchen area, right? And then you have the seating area. So you have the kitchen area and then you have the seating area. So a web app is kind of like that. The back end is like your kitchen area. That is where the food is being prepared, whereas the front end is your website, which is where the food that is prepared in your kitchen is being served to the customers. So obviously you have nice chairs, nice lighting and everything. Again, the kitchen obviously will look a little bit different. It also look nice and everything, but it'll be crowded, it'll be hot, right? Food, heat, it'll be hot as well, and so on. So the back end is kind of like that. Now, here, in a restaurant, what happens is the food is being prepared in the kitchen, and then it is being delivered to the restaurant area. So in our web app, what is the food then? In our web app, the food is essentially our data. So whatever web app you're trying to build, there is data that is being taken from a database and it is being sent to the front end. So the food is like the data, and the data is being either stored or processed or created in the backend, and it is being sent and also being received from the front end. Now, till now, in our sessions, we have mostly been spending time trying to understand the front end part of the development. So I've been talking about JavaScript and Angular for many sessions now. So I think we have reached a point where whatever we can learn from the Angular perspective on a basic level, I mean, these sessions are mainly for the beginner learner. That is what we are trying to do. So whatever we can know from a beginner level point of view, that has been discussed till now in the Angular sessions we had till now. But now to go forward, I really need to start making this front end start sending data to the back end, okay? And then the back end should begin to send data to the front end. So using the restaurant example again, you can think of this like, when you go to a restaurant and you place an order, so that is like information going from the front end, right? You go to the restaurant, you're sitting in the sitting area, and then you probably have a waiter or waitress, and then you tell them, okay, you want a cup of tea. And then that information is sent from the sitting area to the kitchen area. So that is information going from the front end to the back end. So in our website, you'll see in a few minutes, we will enter some data or we'll create some data on the front end. Like in a restaurant, we would place an order for 2 cups of tea and so on and so forth. And that will be sent to the back end. And then the back end will store the information, the chef or the kitchen people, the kitchen staff, they will take that information, and based on that, they'll prepare something for you. So you ask for tea, then they would prepare tea, and then that tea is returned back to the front end. So the waitress, she will bring the tea to you, which is what you asked, and then it will be in a nice cup, a saucer, and then you sit and enjoy your tea. Similarly, in the back end, when you want some data that you have saved previously, you will go ahead and get it from your back end, and that will be presented in a nice way in the front end, just like how the tea, they'll put it in a nice cup, saucer and stuff like that. And then that is what the front end does. So that is the easiest example. I always say, I've been doing back end and front end for more than years now, right? More than 12, 15 years I've been building software, more than that actually. So I always use the kitchen example because, the front end is like the sitting area, and then the back end is like the kitchen area, and so on and so forth. So this is what we are trying to build, guys. Till now, we've been focusing only on this, but there's only so much we can do just with the front end. That's not good enough. That's not going to be sufficient. So what we need now is to start building a back end as well, so we can do something a little bit more complex. It is still basics, we are not building anything very complex or anything. I'm still discussing the foundations here, but even the foundations, some complexity is inevitable, right? So let's do this. Now remember this picture, remember this drawing as well. Back end, front end, information is being transferred from the front end to the back end, and that information is being taken from the back end to the front end, just like a restaurant. Now keep that frame of reference in your mind as I'm talking, because I'll be using that example a lot this session and probably in the future sessions as well. Now, just by looking at this drawing and keeping the restaurant analogy in your head, you can see now already in that folder that I asked you to, I showed you to download, and you will do it after the session. We have two folders, right? Now keep this in mind. Now look at our drawing here also. Okay, let me just view, let me zoom. Yeah, there we go. Zoom out. 1 second, let me just make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so there we go. So I have one area, the square area called front end, and then I have a second area called as the back end. So two things, right? And here on the right side, you will see I have two folders. I have this one, I'm calling it the CRUD folder, and the second one, I'm calling it the Angular folder. I just, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, there you go. Right, now remember this when you try to run this project. So I really want you guys to try running this project on your computer before the next session, because next session will get packed. So I want to prepare you now itself for the next session, and when you watch the recording and everything. So when you get into this folder, try to understand that the folder which is CRUD, C-R-U-D, is the back end folder. And then the other one which says Nest CRUD Angular is the front end folder, and match that with this drawing I've shown you. Okay, so only when both of these things are running will you get the complete experience. Just like the restaurant, which has the kitchen and it also has the seating area. Now try to imagine a restaurant which doesn't have a kitchen, but it has an amazing seating area. It is of no use. It doesn't matter how comfortable the chairs are, how well dressed the waiters are. If there is no kitchen, there's no reason to go to that restaurant, because there's nothing to do there. There's no food to buy and eat. Similarly here, no, it doesn't matter how good our front end is if it doesn't have a back end server to talk to. There's no point in having a front end. So when I advise you, when I try to teach you to become a developer, please understand that you must be in a position to build both the front end and the back end. So again, going back to our example, if you simply have a back end but you don't have a front end. So that is again like the restaurant example. You have a great kitchen, but there is simply no space, not even standing space. Forget about sitting, not even standing space to eat food. You're preparing great food, but there's no place to take and eat it. So again, that also does not help you at all. So similarly, here again, we need both front end and back end, and that is where you want to become like a full stack developer, right? So going back to my PowerPoint, that is precisely what I'm talking about. So that is what I mean by back end server. So the back end server, going back to this drawing, is this thing on the right side here, and also here on the other side you have the folder called CRUD. That is our back end server. We'll go into that right now today. Before I end the session, I will run it and I'll show you how it works. And depending on how much time we have, I'll also explain some aspects of the code. But of course, I will go deeper into the code in the next session. because in the next session, I don't have to show you how to download the folder or how to run it, and I don't have to explain all this theory stuff. Today is a little bit of explanation, too much, right? Today's session, but next session we'll go deep dive into the code. So backend folder and the front end folder. So that is what I mean when I use the word backend server. Now, a lot of times we also use the words web API. So backend server is usually web API server. A web API server is also the backend server. Now, although they're the same words, I mean, I use them interchangeably, and I would suggest you also do the same thing. So when I'm a web API server, a backend server, I'm going to call them the same thing going forward. The next thing is I have two more items here. One is called Swagger, and another one is called JSON, right? Now, both of these things, I'll just say right now, and I'll also show it to you in a few minutes. Swagger is a way, it's a documentation tool, it's a documentation software. You'll see that in a few minutes. In fact, I showed another type of backend last session that already had Swagger. So those of you who are coming in from the previous session, you recognize that word, but those who are jumping in right now, Swagger is a documentation tool which is useful for testing web APIs. So we are going to be using that in our backend, and of course I'll show you, and I'll also show you how to build it. Well, actually the Swagger tool, the documentation tool, is directly integrated to Nest.js. I will have more to say about Nest.js in the next session. But for today, please know that Swagger is directly integrated to Nest.js, so we don't have to build it because it is already kind of automatically generated for you. It's like, for example, I think this Zoom session, it has AI captions or something. So when I'm talking, I believe live transcript is being generated somewhere. So like that. So the Swagger documentation is auto-generated for you in my project. So when you use my project, as you build out stuff, as we build things, the Swagger documentation will automatically get updated slowly on its own. But I still have to show you how to configure it, right? That I will do in the next session. Today, I'm just going to show you. Next, JSON, right? Now, JSON also is something every now and then I talk about it. I've mentioned that in previous sessions. I showed a little bit of JSON in the last class as well, but now we are deep diving into backend. Now, JSON plays a very, very important role when you're building a full stack application. So once again, let's go back to my paint software. Okay, so I'm going to have to get rid of this painting now. So hopefully, of course, the session is getting recorded, so you will also remember this. Yes, and you already know the back end and front end, they're going to interact, and before the session is wrapped up, I'll show you my demo. But we talked about Swagger, I'll show you that as well. But what about JSON? Let's jump in. I'm going to create a new canvas for me to draw. So again, I'm drawing using trackpad, so I'm a little bit slow in the trackpad. If I was using my finger, it'll be faster, but I'm not able to do that on the laptop. So what is JSON, folks? Let's try to understand here. So now I have my web app, okay? So I have my web app, right? And soon I will start building a back end server. Again, I'm drawing it using the mouse touchpad, so a little bit slow. And I slowly down the line, I might have to even integrate some other server, not mine, like this is going to be mine. This web app is mine. I'm going to build this. I will show you how to build it. You will build it. This backend is mine, and we'll be building it. So far, so good. But we may have to integrate, right? I mean, right now I haven't planned what kind of integrations we are going to do, but I'm gonna, think about it in future sessions. But it is inevitable at some point we will have to integrate our web app. When I say web app, backend, front end, I may have to integrate our web app with some third party services, It could be anything. Right now, I haven't mapped it out yet because we're still in the early stages of building full stack application, but I do plan to integrate a few third-party services because without that, there's no point in building full stack applications. So we have to integrate third-party services. So now here we are using something called Angular, right? We are using Angular web framework. So far, so good. In the backend, we are using something called Nest, not Next, Nest, N-E-S-T, Nest JS, right? There's no space there, so I'm going to write it here. So we are using something called Nest.js, and then we will also end up integrating with some third-party services. Now, these third-party services might be using Java, they might be using .NET, they might be using Python, and sometimes, they are like third-party software. We don't even know what language they are building their services. So there is some different things going on there, different technology frameworks, different programming languages, and so on and so forth. So that is outside our control. That's why we call them third-party services. But all three of these, the web app has to be in constant communication with the backend, and the backend is supposed to be in constant communication with the front end. Again, the backend also will try to integrate with these third party services. Now, it could be one third-party service, it could be two third-party service, it could be several third-party services, and they all might be built using different programming languages, using different frameworks. So how do we get all these diverse different services? Our front end, it could be you could think of that as a web app service. The back end is already a back end service, and a third party service is another service. So when we have so many different technologies, so many different frameworks, how do we get these different people? You can think of software as people. How do we get different people to talk to each other? So here again, I want to use a real life example. Like, for example, I am from India. Like right now, I am in a city called Hyderabad, right? That is where I'm working for a client. I'm conducting training sessions for fresh graduates who have just finished college and are now starting their job in an IT company, right? So I teach them, I'm here to teach sessions for them, for about 2 months, 3 months. Every day I go to the classroom, teach them, come back. But I don't, my mother tongue is a language called Kannada. Whereas in Hyderabad, the language is Telugu. Now, in our class, we have students who speak Hindi, we have students who speak Telugu, we have students who speak Tamil, we have students who speak Hindi, we have students who speak Marathi, and obviously we have students who speak Kannada. So many different backgrounds and so many different languages. So it's kind of like this scenario you see on the board right now. So different technologies, different frameworks, they are all trying to talk to each other. Luckily for me, in my classroom, everybody knows English. So it doesn't matter, like I am from Kannada. Some of my students are from Marathi, some of my students are from Tamil, some of my students are from Telugu, different languages. But we all speak English in the classroom, so we are able to talk to each other. So it's a common language. Even right now, I'm speaking to you in English, although my mother tongue is Kannada. I'm sure some of you may have a different mother tongue, but because you learned English, you're able to understand me and talk to me, right? So similarly, in technology, we have different services with different technologies. They have to talk to each other. So that common language. Now, when I say talk, what does it mean? It simply means sharing data, right? I mean, that's really what, when I say talking, it's all data, numbers, zeros and ones, guys. That's what it is. So here we use a common data format, and that data format, like how English is a common language in my classroom, and we're all able to talk to each other. When it comes to computer stuff, we use a data format, which is called, again, I'm trying to use the touchpad to draw. I'm really sorry. It's not very accurate and it's very slow. Yes, so that common data format is JSON. Okay, so what JSON looks like, how do we create JSON, how do we send JSON, how do we consume JSON. Now, all this we'll discuss in due time. But the most important thing you want to know is when we are building online web apps and backend services and so on and so forth, we really trying to get them to talk to each other. We just need, when I say talk to each other, send and also receive data. Like okay, another example I like to use is, for example, right now I'm in a hotel room and I want to have, in fact, before the session, I already had my dinner. So I use the food delivery app to order the food and get it delivered. So again, here the food delivery app, it has a payment system. Of course, I gotta pay for the food. It has a mapping feature, so I can see where my, the delivery guy, where he's coming, how far he is, and so on. So it's very much, so that means in the food delivery app, it has to talk, share data with the payment company. It has to share data with Google so that we can track the delivery guy and so on and so forth. So again, all this communication, different services, being able to talk to each other, again, send and receive data with each other is all possible because of JSON. So in our projects also, we are going to be using JSON. So these are the main words that I want you guys to remember. Backend server, web API, I use them interchangeably, for the purpose of our class and our sessions. Backend server and web API are really the same thing. We're just going to roll with it. Next, Swagger is a documentation tool. So we are going to be seeing how that works. I'll be showing you how to configure, how Swagger helps. What are the alternatives to Swagger? We are going to do that as the sessions continue. And finally, JSON, we'll be using JSON, we'll be creating JSON, we'll be sending JSON, and we'll be receiving JSON, we'll be unpacking JSON objects, all that we'll do. But yes, I'll be using this word JSON a lot. So this is, all these things really together come together to form the back end. And as I mentioned, front end and back end will become the full stack. Now, in a minute, I'll run the project that I've created for this session. And of course, every session I'll add the essential components and explain how that was added. But today is mainly just showing you, but before that, some theory, which I've been doing for the last beginning of the session. So there you go, front end. You can see on the left side, oh, I'm just pointing my finger at the screen, you can't see that. So I'm just gonna use the cursor. So front end is the Angular app we've been building till now in the previous sessions. But today we're gonna take it to the next level from now onwards. Backend is, as I mentioned today, we are going to, I'll show you a backend and we'll start building that as well. And together, front end and back end will make that specific situation the full stack. So you of course you may have seen this in, if you're applying for developer jobs and so on, then usually the job advertisement will be like, okay, we need full stack developer in JavaScript. So that's what we are trying to showcase you in these sessions. Full stack JavaScript developer. That's what these sessions are all about. So we have front end, we have back end. Both the two folders, which I showed you. I'll run it in a few minutes. Next, just like in the front end, we are using the Angular JS framework. Here, I need to drink some water, guys. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep drinking water.
All right, guys. So now in the front end, in the last few sessions, we have been using Angular framework. You saw its features, how easy it is to use, how we have components, how we are able to add images, build navigations, add packages. So the framework gives you some ready-made facilities, which makes building things easy. Now for the backend also, just like front end, I chose Angular. For the back end, I am also choosing a framework called Nest.js. Okay, so Angular is for front end, Nest.js is for back end. So here I should kind of I might as well go to the internet for a second. So please understand that you have something called Nest.js, right? You saw right there. But please note there is also another thing called Next.js. It's just one letter. So please understand, we are not using Next.js. We are using Nest.js. So try to remember the logo, the red color logo is what we are using, Nest.js. Whereas this one, it's the dark N circle logo. That is Next.js. So please, I know it's a silly thing, but I'm sure it won't create any confusion for you. But when you're pronouncing as well, it's very easy to go from Nest to Next and then come back to Nest. So let's try to avoid that. So we are definitely using Nest.js, right? So just like how, in the beginning, like all the way back 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I mentioned, why I chose Angular, because, I've been using Angular for quite some time now. Even now, this client I told you I'm doing sessions there also, I am handling, like a batch of 3-month training on Angular. So Angular I have experience with, I have good feedback about it. So that's why I chose Angular for these sessions. Similarly for the backend as well. Now, usually I'm a .NET developer. That's why you see so many. When I start my presentation, I show you that I have all these Microsoft certificates and everything. So I'm pretty much a Microsoft guy. I do a lot of work in cloud, Azure cloud, and .NET. So in .NET, we get all these facilities, and one of them is, Swagger and convenience of typing and using and community support and stuff like that. So for these sessions, I tried to find something which is very similar to .NET in terms of community support, support for Swagger, management, maintainability and things like that. So that is where I chose to go with Nest.js. So obviously I do a lot of research and homework before doing these sessions. I found that of all the many ways, like for example, I showed you Next.js, that can also be used to build backend using JavaScript. But still, I did the comparison, Nest.js, Next.js, Express.js, there are a lot of other frameworks as well. Ultimately, for me, Nest.js made more sense, so I chose that for our backend session. So there you go, folks. That's what front end and back end is. Now, before I take any questions, let me quickly run the project. Now, in the beginning of the session, I showed you how to download, right? I showed you how to clone and everything. So that please remember, because next session, I'm going to jump straight to the code. But now the last step, show you what, obviously you should know how it looks, right? I've been talking about full stack for some time now. So let's do that. So as always, VS Code. So there are 2 projects. So we'll have 2 windows. So I'll go here, right? The one which is called CRUD, C-R-U-D, that is the backend. And then the other one is CRUD-Angular, that is the front end. It doesn't matter in which order you run them as long as both of them are running. But I usually start the backend first and then run the front end. Again, the restaurant thing, you want to prepare the food first before you serve it. So logically, it makes sense you run the backend first. So I'm going to go inside this, right click, and here I have an option called open with code. So I'll open this. Now here also some folks, you might, I get a lot of questions in the community as well. Please be inside the folder when you right click. Remember this recording, you have to be looking at all these things, package.json, git ignore, src, test. You need to have this, and then only you should right click and then open VS Code, and you'll get something like this. Very, very important. I've seen some students, of course, I help them on the community and everything. They are not inside the folder. A lot of time they're outside the folder, and you won't be able to run the project. So once again, make sure you have this specific thing before you right click and open the folder. So once you do this, because this is JavaScript, we want to open the terminal. This is something we've been doing with Angular. So there we go. And you have to do npm and then space install. So this command I've already discussed in the previous session. So but you can still see it there. It's a little small. I can't make that bigger. So npm install, and it'll take a while depending on how fast your internet is. My hotel Wi-Fi is pretty fast, so it should happen in a few seconds. But yours, depending on your internet speed, it might take a few seconds or maybe even minutes. There are bigger projects which can take a really long time. So we'll wait for this to be finished. I can run the second project parallelly, but okay, it's done. It's done. Okay, so now this is done. npm install. Then the next command, similar to Angular, npm space run space start. So again, depending on how fast your computer is, it can take a few seconds to do this, or it can take, okay, it's done here. So there you go. So here now what you want to do is to see your backend, you have to go back to the link I shared with you. And here I've written something where it says Swagger runs on localhost 3000. So this is again an important step, okay? So you have to come here and click on this and you will get this. So please remember, you have to do it exactly like this. You have to come back to the link I gave you in the PDF. After you do npm run start, you'll see some green color and stuff like you see right now. And then you have to come back to the link I gave you and then click on this localhost 3000/API. Only then will you get this. So if you're able to get this, then you're on the right track. If you don't get this, remember what I keep telling you, always start from the first step. Don't try to skip, don't do that. Just always start from the first step. Now, this is the backend. Now, again, I'll go back to the folder, go back to the two folder situation. Remember, backend, frontend. Again, just like the backend, go inside the folder. So here also, you will see src, angular.json, package.json. So you have to be inside the folder, right click, show more options, open with code. So again, another window. So we have two things now, kitchen, right? Kitchen, restaurant. So two things here also, two things. Then terminal, new terminal, same thing we've been doing before. And again, npm install, just like we did a few minutes ago. But this time, this is for the front end. We'll wait. It should be done in a few seconds. Normally, the front end has more files, so the front end takes longer. So we'll wait. It should be done in a few seconds. So normally I would have this ready before the session start, but today I want to show you guys, so I'm doing it and waiting for it to finish. Well, it has a lot of packages. These are called packages. We use packages when building applications. So all the packages, they are being downloaded from the internet. Without these packages, Angular would not work, right? So there you go. It's ready. Next, as always, npm run start, just like we did in the backend as well. So again, here also, depending on how fast your computer is, it'll take a few seconds. The front end always takes a few seconds longer. Yeah, there you go. It's done. Now here, no need to go anywhere. The link is already here. Just go here, press and hold the control key, control, and then click. And voila, there you go. So now let's keep them side by side. So this is the front end, and I want to keep the back end. Now, if you get this running on your computer, then you're on the right track. Backhand is on the left side. You can see Swagger logo there. We'll go into that deeper into the next session. On the right side, you have Angular. So again, front end. So how is the data? Remember, I told you the restaurant food is being prepared in the kitchen, sent to the table, and from the table, you take the. So here on the right side, I have something called items. So it's just a simple software. So here I'm going to add a new item. Okay. So I'm just gonna add a name. I'm gonna add Dr. Lambert's name. So I'm just gonna say Dr. Lambert, and description. I have to add something. Professor, I'm just going to make one more Indiana Jones reference here for you. So Professor Lambert always reminds me of Indiana Jones. So there you go, guys. So I have a very simple item. I'm adding this. So it went, okay? That is the front end, and the data has been sent to the back end. And if I scroll down here, all the way to the bottom, you'll see, Professor Lambert, are you able to see that? So I'm going to zoom in. It is being saved here. Do you see that, sir?
I can see it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So that means it is now stored in the database. Now, what do we mean when we say stored? It means if we close this and open it again, it should still be there. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to copy this link. Okay. And I'm going to close this. It's closed now. So I'm just going to open it. Let's assume some time has passed. So I'll go back to my browser. I'll open a new window, put it on the right side, right? I'm going to paste that link, and I'll once again scroll down, and you'll see Dr. Lambert is still there in the database. So there you go, folks. That's what I mean by backend and front end. So the data is being entered here. It's actually being stored in the backend. We can actually verify that. So if you see here, the ID, Professor Lambert, do you see the ID, sir? It's 29.
I see that. Yes.
Yes, sir. And if I go to the backend on the left side, Swagger, I enter 29 and execute it. There you go, sir. This one is backend, little ugly, but you can see here it says Dr. Lambert, Professor Lambert always reminds me of Indiana Jones.
So now we're looking at the back end of code.
Exactly, sir. So this one looks a little ugly. That's why it's the backend. The kitchen is always I wouldn't say a dirty place, but it's a busy place. Whereas the restaurant seating area is always clean. So this is the front side. The front end looks clean, colors and buttons and whatnot. But the back end looks a little busy, more a developer-y, if I can use that word. So this is what we are going to be building. I mean, this is a simple one, Professor. Obviously, I have big plans, but for now, that is where I will stop. So that's where I want to end. Because if I go back to a PowerPoint, yes, sir, that's what I want to end. So we are in sync here. Yes, sir. That's now I can take questions for the remaining times.
Thank you so much, Jay. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
now let's get our questions together. Comments. How can you apply this in your own life? Francis, you're up first. Go for it.
Okay, good morning to you, Professor and Dr. Lambert.
Good morning.
Attending this class. I've missed a couple of the classes. And I'm really sorry I missed those classes because I didn't actually join this session. But I realize now after coming to this session that it is very important. I have caught on pretty well to the back end and the front end stuff. And I know that it is going to take me to places. I want to congratulate the professor and his clarity in delivering the topic. It is not all the time that we find somebody in information technology that can deliver me the content at a very effective level with great compatibility as it is actually talking to the students to and fro, and it is actually talking with the computer to deliver what he wants to get across to us. So that is something that I find very interesting, and I know that this class will mean a lot to many, as well as the classes that were already done. And I thank you again for this information today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Francis. Yeah, going through this you have to take it very slow, step by step, and then practice it. And then it just becomes routine, right?
Yes,
Because it'll be the same steps over and over again, but you have to learn those steps every step of the way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's go to CC Jules. CC Jules, you usually writes your question into chat, but I don't see it.
He started asking them directly lately, Professor.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead,
Oh,
CC Jules.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
ready
yeah.
to
I put in the chat. Yeah, I put in the chat. I say, yeah, this session is so interesting. So, what can I say? So passionate in terms of programming with GS Angular. So my question is, since I have started my article journal publishing and my thesis in PhD, I have some concern regarding the programming in GS and Python for the AI. First question is, based on the back end and front end, how to deploy web API application programming interface. This is the meaning of API on client PCs in Angular JS, and what operating system those can support JS API deployment. I prefer we answer question by question. It is better than instead I ask all question and get the answer. Is it possible to go question by question, Jay?
Yes, I'm going to that right now, Jules. So, right, I see 1, 2. I think question number 2 is missing. You're going directly from 1 to 3. I don't see question 2. So I'm going to answer what is typed in the chat. So the first question is, so both Angular, well, Angular runs in the browser, Jules. So it has no connection to any of the things like hard drive or RAM and processor. Those things are unrelated. So when you build an Angular web app, it will just run on your PC or mobile phone without any connection to the processor and stuff. So that is the answer to your first question. I don't see question number 2 here. So I'm going directly to the question 3, which says AngularJS can run big data with different plot display like in Python. The answer is yes and no. So if you are building some kind of a software project for your thesis, and if you want to build something, like a financial project or a banking project, sure, you can use the web API things I started today to build this project, but Angular is for the front end. So it will show what you build. It itself does not do anything. Its job is to just show things. Now, the second part of your question is, can you do plots and stuff? Okay, so there are some plotting libraries in JavaScript. But if you are doing something heavy in plotting, then no, this is not the one for that. So if you are doing something very heavy with plots and stuff, then you should be using Python for that. So Angular is mainly for building websites. Like today I showed you, storing simple data. For graphs and plots, Python is better suited. Now, question number 4, AngularJS use requirement and Docker file. So the answer is no, Angular does not have any requirement.txt and stuff. But yes, definitely, I haven't reached a deployment topic yet. I do plan to do that down the line. So I will definitely discuss how to deploy both Angular and Nest.js to the cloud. And if necessary, I can also add Docker as one of the topics. But the simple answer is yes. So to deploy, we can directly deploy Angular. That is what we normally do. But if you want to put that in a Docker file or something, it's a very, very advanced step. But yes, you could if you really want to. So those are the questions you put there. So
Yeah,
yes.
my second question was this, because I manipulate wrongly in the chat box and erase the question 2.
Oh,
The question 2 is how to describe a development server and a production server with an Angular JS API, application programming interface, and what are the hardware features required to support an Angular JS API deployment in terms of HD, hard drive, ROM, read-only memory, RAM, random access memory, processor, and VGA, visual graphic adapter size.
so that's the thing, Joe. So you'll have to forget about that. These are web applications. They have no connection to RAM and hard drive. They are irrelevant for the type of software we are building. They simply run in the browser. So if you're able to go to google.com, then you should be able to run both Angular and also the Swagger that I showed you today. However, you did ask about deployment. yes, so I do, as I mentioned, I do plan to do deployment after we built it because we have nothing to deploy yet. So when I come to the deployment topic, I will be showing how to deploy to the cloud, which means like right now, the Swagger thing I showed you where I added Dr. Lambert's name. So I will be showing, I mean, not right now, but eventually in a further session where we should be able to like visit the website and directly use that to store our data. Now, if you are trying to do that immediately, then again, community is there and I can share the steps with you because I already have those steps.
Yeah, Mr. AJ, please. My main concern in throughout this vocation is first if GS Angular can how they call design the plots, different plot like 2 variable, 3 variable plot, and so on from big data. Now my second concern is can I use how they call can I use GS how to deploy GS from the back end to front end client or computers workstation. This is the two main questions throughout the 4 questions. The two main
Yeah, so this is not the code for plotting. So plotting question, the direct answer is no. The second question, deployment, I will show that eventually in these sessions. But if you want to know in advance, that's what I meant. If you can put that question in the community, I already have the steps. I can share that with you. That's what I'm trying to say.
Because I need to raise up the plotting with GIS, like in Python, in my article journals publishing on the current trend.
Okay. Yes, I already have the steps. I can share the link with you if you can just put that in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and eventually I'll show that live also. But since you want it early, I'm just going to share the steps with you. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
All right.
I still have time, Dr. Lambert. I'm happy to take some more questions, sir, if you want me to.
I only see one more question from Abdullah.
Okay, yes.
Let's go ahead and see if he's got a question. If he can activate his microphone, Abdullah. Abdullah? Try again. I know you're not. There you go. I think you got it now. There you go.
Yeah, are you hearing me, Dr. Lambert?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, the microphone my microphone is right now stable, and there is no wrong about it. How are you, Doctor, Professor?
I'm okay, sir. Thank you. Oh, I think he meant you, Professor Lambert. Sorry.
Thank you for the outstanding achievement of CC Jules Abba and the other students as I am. Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Thank you, all the students of the family of AIU. My question is simple. I would like a PDF file, Doctor, to all the code structure of the mobile that we can use that is important. Can you send me all the code of for what does it mean to a summary to go without for example, if you want sometimes to go enter, there is another code quickly more quick to go to use. If there exists some code structure as this, can I have all the code of the mobile phone and the computer and in the PDF file? And I need also your email. Thank you, sir. Thank you, teacher.
Yes, that's the PDF. I keep sharing in the beginning of the session and just now at the end of the session as well. So that has a summary of all the sessions we have done with the code that was discussed in each session. So I believe your question is already answered. So the PDF is there in the chat, which you should download before the session ends.
Okay. It is available.
Yes.
It is available
In the chat right now, but you should download it before the session ends because the chat disappears. when the session ends. So you should download the PDF right away.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
sir.
Okay, I think that's going to do it.
Okay.
There we go. Let's see. Is it possible to use deployment with Kubernetes orchestration?
This is related to the Docker question that was discussed earlier, Professor. It is a very advanced
okay.
step. Right now I'm not planning to do that even in the long run. But the answer to that is yes. Of course, if you're gonna deploy with Docker, then you would eventually be orchestrating the whole thing with Kubernetes. Yes, the answer is yes. But that is not something that's kind of outside our purview, so to speak, Professor. But yes, the answer is yes.